That
Yeah, well, this is a recent story.
okay?
This has to do with past history, relationships with Eileen, and characteristics of a Mooney, which go on to probably the present day. I mean, genetically, I haven't really checked out on everybody, but this could possibly be a story that continues. Now, I had known Eileen for probably about a year and a half, and we decided to get married very, very young, probably too young. It's now almost 61 years ago, and the present date is 2017. So the date that I'm talking about now would have been in the 1955 period, 1955 for sure. And so I made my way to Cleveland, even though she was living in Euclid, and we had to get a marriage license. Then the procedure at that time was to go to the city hall. Now, just within the last few months, we had returned to Cleveland, and Eileen said, "Let's go downtown. I understand it's become a very interesting spot." So we got off the expressway right at the time that the Indians were starting a game at the Progressive Field. Of course, we were jammed up in all of the stadium traffic. We make our way down Superior Avenue, where all the hotels are at the present time, beat our way down to what is called the Government Center. And as we're going back down toward the lake, I see this building, and Eileen says, "That's a county courthouse." But as we approach it, I'm taking a look at it, and it rings a bell in my memory. It has a series of marble steps, sort of like going up to the Supreme Court of the United States. And I look up and I say, "Eileen, that's not the county courthouse, that is the city hall." And then it flashed back to me. That was where I was to meet Eileen to get our marriage license. And the way that procedure was, I was downtown with Bob Sr., and we walked over because we were going to meet at 11:30 in the morning. And Eileen was going to be shopping with her mother and come over to the city hall, and we would walk up these marvelous marble steps, and we would walk in and obtain this document. We needed to get married. The flashback was that I could remember 62 years earlier that I was on those steps. 11:30 came, 11:30 went. A quarter of 12 came, and I looked over at Bob, and I said, "Bob, where's Eileen?" And he looked over at me and said, "John, get used to it." And that was the story. I found that Eileen has a tendency sometimes not to show up at the appointed time. The rest of the story was that we did get a marriage license, but it was somewhat delayed and somewhat frustrating.
How long did it take her to show up?
I suspect that she was no more than a half an hour late. I mean, as I recall, there was no problem of walking in at, say 12 o'clock and getting the marriage license. And in time, she showed up, and completely innocent. I mean, there was absolutely, on her part, there had been no delay. But Bob Sr. did advise me at that time to be aware that it was a family characteristic.